Okay, hello. I'm just going to invite Alex and welcome to this Instagram live. Just got my notes here. Creating connections for introverts through vulnerability. So we are live, and if you are watching this live, hello. And if you're watching this as a replay, hello. Hi. Joined. I'm just waiting for Alex to join. Is it working? So I'm gonna start. I don't know what's going on. Alex joined. Invite. Oops. Super glitchy this morning. Request to join, accept. Okay. Oh,
Yay.
okay. Oh my God. So complicated. I don't
Facebook.
think it did the thing where it's like added you, so I don't know if he'll be on your profile. I don't know. I think maybe
Okay.
Japan doesn't have it. I don't know.
Okay.
So sick
We'll
of being
figure it.
manipulated by this platform.
Yeah. We can figure that out when we get there.
Yeah. Get some water. How are you
Cool.
today, Alex?
Yeah, I'm great. Thanks. Doing okay. How are you?
I'm good. I'm really tired. I am on dual phase, probably a few days away from a period. So yeah, I can just feel like my brain is really busy, but like my body's like bah, and got lots of spring cleaning to do, which requires so much like a little bit of mental and physical strength, and I don't have any. So yeah, that's why I'm down here, and I just had to tell Life to go away because yeah, I didn't have the privacy of upstairs because there's like futons and bedding. And anyway, just to get straight to the point, because we already so we're 4 minutes behind, so we'll finish. So it's about half an hour. So today's Instagram live is creating connections for introverts through vulnerability, and the title actually is needing help with vulnerability as an introvert and how vulnerability helps introverts build strong connections. So that's today's theme on Nano Yoga Instagram is vulnerability, and I am Nano or Nanako. I normally teach skiers and snowboarders yoga. That's kind of my niche, but also creating yoga and wellness tools to make you feel good. So sort of if you're a skier, snowboarder, or someone who loves the outdoors and the mountains, but also kind of more inclined to take care of themselves rather than just get fucked up and go out and get drunk. Being too, rude, I guess. Shall I introduce you?
Sure, yeah, go for it.
We've got a few people. We've got Justin, Yoga Koto. Oh, is that a Welsh name? Sinead? And then
Maybe.
yeah. Syed. Hello, welcome. So Alex is a yoga teacher based in Tokyo. Her mission is to create a safe and comfortable space for introverts to enjoy yoga and wellness. They can release stress and invite relaxation. Did you change that? Because I did not write that.
Yes.
Okay, because I was like, oh, that sounds really cool. I don't remember. Today's topic again is vulnerability, and as Alex is sort of an expert in like being an introvert, actually you consider yourself an introvert, and therefore would like to help other introverts to get into yoga because I think especially because you're based in Tokyo in Japan, I think there is a sort of extroverted aspect to yoga and a very limited viewpoint of yoga. Yeah, do you want to just talk about that a little bit? Like why introverts and yoga?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for that. That was a wonderful introduction. So yeah, definitely when I first kind of came to Tokyo and started thinking about kind of doing yoga, my image of yoga was very like people very flexible, very thin, very like kind of not in your face, but kind of very like, I don't know, out there. And that kind of put me off at first. I was kind of a little bit nervous about like joining a yoga studio. I was when I first went to my first class, I was thinking like, do I really fit in here? What am I going to feel like in this place? Are people going to look at me? Are people going to like judge me for doing the wrong thing? And I think as introverts, that kind of comes to us quite naturally, those kind of feelings. So I am an introvert. And when you think of introverts, a lot of people think like they're very kind of closed inside people who don't really talk to other people, don't really make like a lot of friends. And in some cases that can be true. But I think as an introvert, for me, I just really like to make kind of deep connections with kind of a closer group of people. Yeah, so that's why kind of introverts, just being me as an introvert myself and just helping other people kind of um, yeah, do yoga in a way that is comfortable for them.
Nice, thank you. Yeah, I'm kind of like 50. I did a personality test when I'm 14, no, 49% introvert, but
Mhm.
51% extrovert. So I'm very much like, depending
Mm,
on my mood, I'm on like literally one or the other. Like I either
mhm,
like everybody and I just don't want to be near anybody, or I'm like super, yeah, super happy. Like even yesterday, I did a goddess circle, like a local one for community thing, and I was like had the shittest day, but it was so nice to actually be around people. So it's funny
mm,
how like because when you're not having a great day, maybe you want to be alone, but sometimes actually you kind of need to be around people. So
mm,
I think
mhm,
that you've got a really good point that maybe in our society there's this sense that you need to have lots and lots of connections,
mhm,
but really there's you only have the capacity for like a few deep ones.
mhm,
And like not that you shouldn't have loads of friends, but I don't think it's realistic to have like a gajillion close friends really, or really
mhm,
strong connections.
mhm,
um Yeah. Oh, so I think that's pretty much your, is that what I, yeah, pretty much, yeah. So what do you think that, yeah, like what do you think about vulnerability and creating connections? Because vulnerability, I mean, I don't know about you, but it's generally this kind of negative
mm,
thing, like, saying how you feel and saying how you really feel is very, it is vulnerable because there's a strong sense that you might get rejected
mhm,
and that you might get gaslit or told that no, that's not how it is. Or
mhm,
I think, especially for some of us, I mean, I don't want to make it gender focused, but I think if you're a male, I think vulnerability is like terrifying because it's like,
mhm,
even things I hear from my husband, like jokes that would be made if you're male and you're more emotional, whatever, you'd just, be called names and like, oh, there's Leif. And then, yeah, so I think vulnerability is something that we are really scared of, but I see it as a strength.
mhm,
I see it as a way to create boundaries. I see
mm,
vulnerability as a way to just, yeah, build connections. Because actually when I did the goddess circles, for example, it was funny because we all had these very personal vulnerable feelings and thoughts, and then once you actually talk about them you find out that other people relate, even though I mean, especially where I live, it's pretty international. There's like Japanese, European, yeah, like even yesterday I counted there's like 6 different nationalities at the goddess circle, which is like pretty impressive because they're in the countryside. So yeah, go ahead. So as an introvert, what do you think of vulnerability?
mhm. Yeah, that's really that's so true. I definitely think that vulnerability does help us to bring deeper connections. So I would say, like, for me, vulnerability is kind of two different things, like vulnerability with other people and vulnerability with yourself.
Yeah.
So like you mentioned about the goddess circles, vulnerability can definitely help us like open up, and it can be different kind of ways of being vulnerable, right? Like you can talk about how you really feel or talk about kind of issues. These things can help us feel, yeah, vulnerable and kind of connect with other people. But as an introvert, maybe often when you're out with lots of extroverts or like friends who are a little bit more extroverted, and they quite easily just talk about their vulnerability. And sometimes as introverts, we feel a little bit kind of taken aback by that. Um, and I guess it depends as well how close you are as well with these people, and how many people there are around you. If it's like a big group of people and suddenly everyone is getting very vulnerable, it's kind of a bit scary and you're like, oh no, get me out of here. But if it's in a smaller group of people and it's a really safe space, so I think for introverts it's really important for us to feel like safe and really held in a kind of small space, and then it's a lot easier for us to be vulnerable. But when we do, definitely it opens up so much deeper connection, and then we can, yeah, create deeper friends and really connect with how other people are feeling.
Yeah, I think that's so true. I remember when I did my yoga teacher training in Thailand, and it was an Osho center. I don't know if you know much about Osho. Like, nothing wrong with Osho, but what happened with his teachings, and people get angry, got a bit weird. There's like a thing on Netflix about it. I haven't watched it all, but they were really into like, yeah, it was very more spiritual, and I think we were all looking to just learn to be how to be yoga teachers and learn the yoga poses. But I think some of them maybe were a bit atheist or agnostic, like not really religious. So I think we were a bit taken aback by the spiritual side, and they were really pushing it. But the group was massive. It was like the overall group was like 30 people, and they tried to do a circle of like, how do you feel? And it was 30 in front of 29 plus teachers, so 30 something people. And it's like, I'm not gonna reveal everything about myself while you're all watching me and we're all waiting to go in line. Like, it was, and then they worked out that they should do it in groups of like 4 or 5, and then it was better. But I remember still being quite reluctant to open up. So that was like kind of when I'm learning about, yeah, I mean, that was like very much the start of learning about, you know, the positive psychology and like, you know, lots of things about yoga that I didn't really know before. And it's funny because I can be really, like, maybe it is the 50-50 side of me. I can be super open, like you said, and like depending on your environment. But sometimes like my husband will tell you, like, I can be so closed off, and that's like a trauma response. It's like I've noticed I've done it when like a friend has said something and I just shut down. I'm like, I just yeah, like I can't reply. And it's funny, you probably would, if you meet me, you would probably not think that I do that, but I do that. So that's quite funny. So anyway, sorry to turn it on myself.
No.
When, like, what about you? Like, when have you been in a space where like vulnerability was easier for you to to access than being in like a sort of big group situation? Then yeah, so I'm gonna move the kettle from the fireplace because it's making a weird whistle sound.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah, for me, definitely, I feel a lot more safe when I'm in kind of a smaller group or somewhere where someone has really thought about how to create such a safe space. So when I'm in kind of like some yoga classes or sharing spaces that have smaller people, or the facilitator has really thought about how to kind of cater to everyone and to people who may be not so comfortable about sharing with themselves. So I think these kind of situations. And also I think something that's great about introverts is we're really great at listening. So when we kind of are in that kind of space where other people are being vulnerable, even if it's a little bit difficult for us to get out of our comfort zone and kind of open up a lot, we do really kind of listen to other people and their vulnerability. And we're just really great listeners and kind of can feel how other people are feeling more than maybe really, really extroverted people might think. But of course, it depends on the person.
Yeah, that's true actually, because there's you know, people pay a lot of money to be listened to for, you know, therapy, for example. And yeah, like, yeah, that's kind of what I noticed of like when I did the goddess circles, actually, was like, we're so desperate to be heard, the really like listened to. And it's hard actually that's a really, it's an amazing skill. And I remember telling a friend who's a bit of an introvert, but I guess he's a really cool guy. And I remember getting a little like being out and having a few drinks, and like when I have a few drinks, it's like all it's like there's no holding back, depending, I guess, especially if I'm in like a hyper mood. And I was just like, you know, like it makes me actually really uncomfortable because being around you, because you you really listen. Like
Mm,
I can see you're really taking in the shit that I'm saying, and it makes me uncomfortable. And it's happened to me before. Even like the yoga
mm,
teacher was a lady who was a therapist. It's like, I'm not yeah, I'm not really sure, but she was, yeah, and she'd ask you like, how does that make you feel? And I'd be like,
mm,
because I'm very much someone that wants a back and forth sort of conversation,
mm,
and then I guess it makes me feel insecure if someone's really listening to me.
yeah,
So
that's
I just
interesting.
asked him, I was like, don't you want to like, you're, and because he's very much in the snow sports industry, this friend, and there's in the snow sports, it's so male, and there's a lot of bravado, especially with certain people from certain cultures. And I think they love that he really listens and he really like indulges their ego, I guess. And I
Mm,
was like, don't
mm,
you just want to talk back sometimes, or
mm,
talk about yourself, or like reply? And he was like, actually, yeah, like, it was really
mm.
sweet. And I was like, yeah, I'm really glad I had a conversation with him, because it was something that was like really on my mind. Like, Joe, you're such a good listener, but like, yeah, like, don't you have like, how do you feel about being a good listener? Like, do you enjoy
Mm,
it? Do you just do it as like a, as is that just your personality? Or yeah, it was, yeah, because yeah, I definitely need to learn to listen more.
mm.
My
Yeah,
issue.
it's really interesting that you say that, because I think for me also maybe even when I'm in a group of kind of close friends, or like you said, like just talking one on one,
Mm.
I automatically put myself in the role of the listener and just listen to people. But then maybe there are some times that I want to talk, or maybe I don't even notice that I want to say something like in a subconscious level. But then if the other person asks me, well, how do you feel? What are you going through? Then it's often a little bit easier for me to open up and be vulnerable to myself. So maybe if you're an introvert and you're talking to someone who maybe you think is a little bit more quiet, a little bit more introverted, then maybe a good tip could be to ask them how they feel, like you said, and then it kind of creates a little bit more of a deeper connection.
Because it's interesting in Japan, because introversion is quite accepted. It's quite a
Mm,
cultural, like there's a very much like, the people you see on TV are the total opposite, but in culture in general, in
mm,
everyday life,
mm-hmm,
especially being a woman, you are
mm,
supposed to, this minute sort of, introverted, very like, I don't know, there's very much like, so it's interesting in Japanese society seeing
mm-hmm,
that in I don't even know how to describe it, but there is this sense of like, you just leave introverts to be in Japan, sort of thing.
mm, mm-hmm,
Manga culture, there's there's even the hikikomori, like, but that's more of an issue of not raising your voice about mental health problems and so on. So
mm-hmm,
that's a bit of a different issue. But
mm-hmm,
I feel like, yeah, like although in the West it's probably the same. It's just as prevalent, like people being like introverted or extroverted, but I feel like extroversion is more it's like more like pushed, if that makes sense. Like in
mm-hmm.
Western culture, like I feel like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not sure. Like I didn't grow up at school in Japan. I'm sure that like if you're
Mm,
extroverted, you get maybe more attention from the teachers. I'm not really sure, but
mm,
I feel like there is more of the
okay.
sense that like girls are shy or he's shy and that's okay, and like
Mm-hmm,
you won't like sort of push them.
mm-hmm,
Yeah. Whereas in the West, people like that just tend to get sort of forgotten, if that makes sense. Yeah.
mm-hmm.
I don't know, that's my point of view. But
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I think I felt like I did fit in kind of as an introvert in Japan, and a lot of people are kind of like that way. And sometimes it does take a little bit more effort to really get close with your friends. You might feel like they kind of have a little bit of a wall, but once you really open up yourself and kind of talk to them on a deeper level, then it's easy to make really good friends.
yeah. Yeah, it's true. But it's also, I remember when I had therapy and I was talking about friendships and like wanting deeper friendships. It was
Mm,
like 2 years ago. And she was like, there's like it takes time. Like things like building connections, and I think we're a bit too impatient. And then
mm,
I think that's the total opposite. Like in Western, when you meet Westerners, like especially those who come here from abroad, like everyone just wants to be good friends, like straight away, like and then it's just almost a bit. It's such an opposite, because it's like you get so close, and then because of where I live, it's a very small environment, so it's like you get to know a bit. It's a bit too much because everyone does the same sort of businesses and stuff like that. Whereas like with Japanese people, there's a bit of a wall, but somewhat it creates a bit of respect, I find. Like I don't always love it. I do wish people would just be a bit more like honest and say how they feel, because then it would just let you know. But I know that's really hard for people in general, not just culturally. But yeah, it's funny. It's definitely it's definitely something that exists here.
Yeah, definitely. It's a little bit different in general in the society, and in other maybe Western cultures. A lot of the people, the society is kind of catered for extroverted people. So like if you're in work or something, and a lot of the extroverts kind of get higher quicker, they feel more comfortable, talking in front of people or presenting people or kind of networking. Networking is definitely something that I really do not enjoy. So yeah, I think the way that we can kind of really connect with ourselves also as an introvert and see where we're vulnerable in our daily life is also quite useful.
So when you said like vulnerability with yourself, like what is it about being was it that you said that being vulnerable is scary in a large group thing, but also like vulnerable with yourself? Like what did you mean by that?
Yeah. So I think as introverts, we're quite kind of introspective. We kind of go into our minds and think a lot, like so overthinking maybe, or kind of maybe self-criticism sometimes, but also introspection in a way that we can kind of really think how we feel ourselves. And I think that's a great thing, to be vulnerable with yourself, is kind of maybe if you do like some journaling or some meditation, and you can really check in with yourself and see like, how do you feel? So often as introverts, we're kind of alone. We like our alone time. So when we're alone, we kind of, are thinking a lot, but maybe also thinking about ourselves and how we feel at that moment. So feeling vulnerable with ourselves is quite scary because it can open up, I don't know, lots of different things like triggers or traumas or something like that. But definitely being vulnerable in our selves is, I think, a really important thing for an introvert. And to get used to this kind of practice, I think yoga and meditation is a really great tool, because when you're in a yoga class or you're doing yoga yourself, there are some times maybe that it feels a little bit uncomfortable, especially in certain poses. Not like really painful, obviously, just like a kind of dull ache, and you think, okay, well, I'm in this pose, I'm sitting here in pigeon for like how many more breaths? So kind of just sitting in that uncomfortable space is a really great tool. It's like a muscle. So yeah, I think that kind of helps you practice the uncomfortable feeling, and then you can use that when you're being vulnerable with yourself. So if you're triggered by something, someone makes you feel like kind of a little bit, I don't know, icky or weird, and you automatically feel critical to yourself, then maybe you can be a little bit more vulnerable by kind of looking in and talking to yourself. Okay, well, why do I feel like this in this moment? Is it this outside person or is it me? And then why do I feel, why is this kind of making me feel this way? And if it's me, then how can I change that?
Yeah.
And something like yoga or meditation can help us feel a little bit less uncomfortable in those situations, because we're already used to feeling uncomfortable in a yoga pose.
Yeah. And how do you feel like, do you feel that like I have a feeling like if you're introverted and you have alone time and you're always listening, there may be like an aspect where you're overthinking. I think our culture in general, because of any culture now, modern culture, especially maybe from parents' age to us, because of social media and over consuming medias. What am I trying to get at? We're all really in our heads. Everything's very visual. It's very like up here.
Yeah.
And then I think yoga can help to, I think it's, even if you're extroverted, introverted or anything, I think that being in your body is like really, yeah, really important. But how do you feel like that works as an introvert for meditation? Because
Hmm.
you would think that being introverted meditating is too quiet, like would go too, if that makes sense, as like a balance. I feel like
Hmm.
yoga is a good balance because you're moving like that
Hmm.
sort of like, I don't know, like I imagine being introverted is something that feels a bit constricting somewhat, and
Hmm.
like using the yoga can be something you can just accept a bit more and just sort of let it be around in your body. But yeah,
Yeah.
what do you think about it for meditation? Ella White
Hmm.
said hello.
Hello. Yeah, that's a good point. Like you said about yoga is being helpful because it can get us out of our minds if we're thinking too much and into our bodies. But with meditation, I think it's helpful if we have like some kind of meditation prompts,
Mm,
maybe, or if we meditate on a certain thing. Maybe you could do like a visual meditation. Um, Definitely if we're in our heads like quite a lot and overthinking, then if you do just kind of random meditation where you just let yourself think, maybe you can go into like kind of a spiral and start thinking like too much. So rather than that, I would say like a kind of visualization
mm,
meditation where you're just kind of maybe listening to something, or you're visualizing something more calming like waves or something. I think that's definitely a great way for us to kind of release some of the stressful thoughts that we have in our heads.
mm. Nice. Yeah. Yeah. I think meditation is just one of these things that you kind of, it's so different for everybody.
Mm,
And I know that like I was pretty reluctant to do it, and I was just like, I'll never have a meditation practice. It's
mm-hmm,
ridiculous. It's so hard, especially doing Vipassana, which is where you literally just like sit,
mm-hmm,
you don't move. It's very much the traditional way of doing meditation. I think there's lots of different ways to meditate. There's, ecstatic dance, there's movement based, there's, shavasana, yoga nidra. Like I think there's lots of different, walking, hiking. Like I think
mm-hmm,
everyone has that thing that they can do where they're not they're more sort of aware of everything rather than just in their mind.
mm-hmm,
um so I'm not like I definitely believe in meditation, but I do believe also everyone has their own way to meditate. They just have to be open to find that.
mm-hmm,
But yeah, I definitely do really recommend actual meditation,
mm-hmm,
practicing it as well, not just like once for a few
mm-hmm,
minutes, but actually, yeah, continuing it. And just, yeah, for sure, when you actually create a practice, which I know is hard, lots of things to do every day, but yeah, if you actually make the time, it can be, I actually find it almost more beneficial than yoga itself, which I know is because yoga was created to prepare for meditation anyway,
mm-hmm.
originally for men, obviously in India. But then there's a philosophy and all that. But yeah, yeah, I love meditation. What sort of, I think I've got it here.
Mm-hmm.
Writing down how we feel, facing our vulnerability, and mindful journaling can help us identify stresses in our present that we can choose, and then we can make a no, then we can make a choice to change it or not.
Mm-hmm.
What sort of journaling prompts would you have for someone that's an introvert and that is having like a vulnerable moment, or had a bit of a trigger from vulnerability, or wants to access their vulnerability? Sorry,
Mm-hmm.
that's three different questions.
No. Yeah, that's a really good question. Definitely journaling is helpful. Even if like before you said if you do meditation and then you feel like a lot of the same kind of thing comes up and you
Mm,
can't get it out of your head, maybe even writing it down like in a journal, that's really quite helpful.
mm,
Um, but also like, yeah, just asking how do you feel at this moment, and maybe asking yourself how you feel in your body as well is quite useful, because if we're often in our minds all the time, then it's difficult to kind of connect with our bodies and see how it
mm,
feels at that moment. And if you're feeling triggered, it's great to see how it feels in the body as well, not just in the mind. So yeah, maybe how do you feel in your body? And if you feel like something is triggering you, maybe why do I feel this way? So you can kind of get a little bit more to the root problem maybe, and in that way it helps you be vulnerable with yourself because you can kind of look a little bit deeper.
Nice. Yeah. All right. I've just like made some notes just so that, yeah, I forget easily.
Nice, thanks.
I think, yeah, that's about it really. Yeah, we're almost up. We've got 2 more minutes for half an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you've got like, obviously, if people are on Instagram, they can follow you on
Mm-hmm.
your link, I guess it's called, or yeah, on your profile. I'm not sure. They can
Profile?
follow you on Instagram.
Profile? Yes.
They'll find you because you're
Mm-hmm.
Alex. And
Yes.
yeah, do you have like an offer coming up or
Mm-hmm.
anything you'd like to talk about?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, Nanako. So, yeah, if you would like to find out more about introverts, you can follow me on Instagram, Alex Lynn Yoga, and also I have an exciting offer coming out soon. So, it's like a group program automatically. When you say group program for introverts, maybe you might think, oh no, group program. But it'll be a group program for specifically for kind of introverts, maybe quieter minds, sensitive people who really want to start their yoga journey. And it will be kind of showing them how to start a yoga journey in order to release stress and overwhelm, and also kind of, yeah, embrace who you are as a person. So that group program will be coming out soon, in May, I think, and it's definitely, I've thought about how, you know, introverts work together and kind of in a group setting, so it's really catered to us to not feel like overwhelmed in the course itself.
Nice. Great. Well, thank you so much for making the time on your Saturday morning to
Hmm,
join live. And if, yeah, if you're an
thank you.
introvert, just follow Alex. Her Instagram is all about introverts and how a yoga practice, meditation, and just like wellness tools to help you in an extroverted world.
Hmm.
And that's it. That's us wrapped up about vulnerability. I feel like it's such a tricky subject to talk about, but it's so, I love it. It's great.
Mm,
Um, that's it.
yeah,
So,
definitely. Would you like to tell us about you, like if my followers would like to kind of connect with you?
sure. I'm going to have that was really strange English. I'm going to have a course called the Feel Good course. I'm currently creating the Feel Good guide, which is going to be my freebie. So that's going to have stuff about your moon cycle. It's essentially tools, wellness tools that will help you to give yourself a fucking break, because I feel that we are all too hard on ourselves. A lot of the course, the Feel Good course, is about self-love. That's the biggest pillar. I feel that we are, especially as women, we tend to want to talk more about the negative things about our bodies and ourselves rather than actually just accept self-love from others, from ourselves, and kind of using that for all these other pillars like vulnerability. That's the thick one. I'm trying to think of them all in my mind. So self-love is number one, self-trust, self-responsibility, boundaries, confidence, vulnerability, and empowerment. So they're kind of all like, the self-love is like the big foundation, and then the rest kind of all comes together to. And I know empowerment can be something that sounds really cheesy, but I think that after just what's been going on in the world and stuff, and for 2 years, I think we really need to feel good, and whatever we can access to do that, that is what this course will be about.
Cool. Sounds
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Alex. Have a great day. I'll speak to you probably
Thank
on
you.
WhatsApp.
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks
Bye.
so much. Bye.
How do I do this?